Well, those are major priorities, as you pointed out. And you're seeing now it's going from policy to practicality. So there have been policy pronouncements about the importance of both of those. And now you're actually seeing things happen. So, of course, we understand the headline numbers, 6% GDP growth. You could say that's a general and positive barometer for the Chinese economy, which I think most observers believe is realistic and attainable. I think the concern is the rest of the world going to cooperate? Meaning, as they try to launch their COVID comebacks, which China has already implemented, will they be able to do business with China, to trade, to buy, and to sell? I think that's one area of potential concern. But the internal economy of China, make no doubt about it, is coming back with consumers, leading with their wallets.
So clearly, with China being in a strong position economically, a year after it brought the pandemic under control, when China is in a strong position, doesn't it have wider implications for the rest of the world?
It does. It absolutely does. As we know, China is so inextricably linked to supply chains throughout the world. We've especially had that emphasized in the last 3 or 4 years. And yes, when China's economy is robust and functioning, that's generally a very good sign for the rest of the world. And especially with the shift from manufacturing to a services and a consumer-driven economy.
Let me move on to next week's top-level meeting in Alaska between U.S. and Chinese diplomats. What are the expectations here, Dan, and what does really each side hope to achieve from this first face-to-face meeting in the Biden administration?
It's clearly a relaunch. It has the expectations of some fresh faces on the U.S. side, being able to perhaps approach things slightly differently than the prior administration did. So I think there are good expectations that there's somewhat of a clean slate in terms of the personal relationships that are going to come together and what's going to be discussed. But as we talked about before, so far the signals from the U.S. are there's not going to be a whole lot of divergence from policies that were put in motion under the Trump administration.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you. We heard from Chinese Premier Li Keqiang today, who said he hopes Beijing can really resume dialogue with Washington even if the two sides can't work on everything, can't work out everything anytime soon. So a little bit more upbeat than what we've heard from U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who has said the relationship with China would be the biggest geopolitical test of the 21st century, and called China the one country able to seriously challenge the stable and open international system. That's a little bit different from what we're hearing from the Chinese.
It sure is. And you've got to give some thought and analysis to is that being put out there to take this visible position, and when the parties come together as people sitting across the table, does the tenor of the conversation slightly, come down a notch or two? It will. But again, the agenda of the Trump administration with China remains largely in process, largely in place. And so I think it's good when one or the other, ideally both sides, indicate a willingness to dialogue. It all starts with that. But there have been very little policy pronouncements from the U.S. that would lead anyone to believe that the situation between the two largest on the planet is going to change radically.